I sat down at the desk today, and Dwayne had posted or passed on to me a shocking story, the passing of our dear, dear friend, Dr. David Allen White. Those of you who've listened to the show for its 25 years know Dr. White. Those of you who went on one of the Hugh cruises, 1 through 20, knew Dr. White. Dr. White was actually on the first Hugh cruise, and I wasn't on it. My wife went on it, and Dr. David Allen White, accompanied by his closest friend of many, many years, Patrick McCarthy, went on that first cruise, and then many, many of the cruises thereafter. He was such a magnificent man. If anyone gets a pass right through the pearly gates, it's David Allen White. A Catholic's Catholic, a brilliant scholar, and maybe the best lecturer I've ever heard. That's saying a lot. David could hold an audience unlike anyone I've ever seen. I also visited him at Annapolis, where he taught for many, many years, the mids, and listened to him teach Don Quixote. But mostly he would pick a book, Moby Dick, Dostoevsky, or he would pick a composer. And on our cruises, I would do politics, and he would do the book or the composer. And the lectures would always be overflowing for him, and not so much for me, but that's fine. Patrick would sometimes lecture too. Together, they were just the dynamic duo. And I agree for Patrick. I don't agree for David. David's in heaven. But I do want you to know, if you're a longtime listener to the show, that Dr. White passed on Monday. And if you have never heard him, I'll make a point to replay our 3-hour Shakespeare introductory lecture. We used to do when I was an afternoon, middle of the day guy. I could do a 3-hour show with one guest, and David Allen White did one on Dickens, and he did one on Shakespeare for me for holidays, and we've got those stored away some way, and we'll have to do an encore. I just want to say, if you didn't ever get to hear him, the most important thing to him was witnessing for his faith in Christ and the Catholic Church. And even though he could talk your ear off about anything you wanted to talk about, and politics was a great rumble, grumble, stumble, storm and thunder, but always cheerful. And it's so ironic or odd or just coincidental. The fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I were talking about David on Monday, because I'm just about to finish Brideshead Revisited. He always urged us to read that. And he gave the DVDs to my son, the BBC DVDs to my son. We were talking about it because I'm about 25 minutes away from the Jeremy Irons narration of Brideshead Revisited. I wanted to save the last 25 minutes. I didn't want to break it up. It's where Charles discusses his faith or lack thereof. I don't know how it turns out. I've never read it, never watched it. But David Allen White swore by that book. He was a Sherpa to literature and music. So for so many people, that he will be greatly missed.